Welcome, guys. Thanks for being here. Let's start with some introductions. Can you guys just tell us who you are and what you do and what's up?
So I'm the guy just bailed on the main stage here at Anarchapulco. My name's Dan Dix. I run an independent media group called Press for Truth. I put out daily videos. I try to on YouTube, make documentary films, and kind of try to cover the issues that the mainstream media fails to cover or often puts their own spin on. So that's what we focus on at Press for Truth.
My name's Del Bigtree. I have a weekly talk show online called The High Wire with Del Bigtree. I was a producer on the CBS talk show The Doctors for 6 years. Before that, on the Dr. Phil show, I won an Emmy Award celebrating the best that science and medicine has to offer. Then I, ran into a whistleblower story at the CDC that came forward and said they were committing scientific fraud on the vaccine safety studies. I made a documentary about that called Vaxxed. That changed my life forever. Making that documentary meant I probably will never be able to work in television again unless something really changes, but I think we're bringing television to the internet. I think one of the things that's a little different on what we do is we're pretty polished. It's not only am I on the show, but I have as an executive producer I brought over from CBS, the talk show, and I also have a field producer from CBS. So we're producing really mainstream style television, but talk about the things that none of them can.
I'm Josh Sigerton. I do not have an Emmy, but I did start World Alternative Media about 7 or 8 years ago in order to combat what everyone now calls fake news. Essentially, the goal is to look at things like the mainstream media and even many independent media and see the fear-mongering, and instead of scaring people, bringing people solutions to the problems that so many people are concerned about worldwide, and that branches an array of topics and subject matters, and we basically just report on everything and anything we can and provide the proper solutions we think for people in whatever subject matter that might be.
Excellent. Excuse me. So, I'm wondering, because as a fellow contributor, I know that I've experienced a lot of censorship and shadow banning in the past year and a half. So I'm wondering, what has it been like for you guys, since you guys have relatively large audiences? What's your experience been like regarding this age of censorship that we're all experiencing? Has it really affected you, and what have you done to pivot to counter that?
The last, I'd say 2 years in particular, especially the last year, have been really bad when it comes to them clamping down on our numbers. I currently have a little over 250,000 YouTube subscribers, and I'm averaging, 4,000 or 5,000 views a video these days, and it really doesn't make sense, because what they've done is designed the algorithms to be watching out for our type of information, and we will no longer be recommended in the recommended news feeds. It's becoming harder and harder to find our material. In fact, if you type in the full title of any 5 of my documentary films, many of which have millions of views, they don't even show up anymore until the 3rd or 4th page of YouTube. So it's getting really bad. But I think long term it's going to get better, because there are a lot of alternative platforms popping up all the time, left, right, and center, a lot of blockchain-based platforms. But at this stage in the game, in the short term, I think it's going to be continuing to get a little bit worse. So this is why I've been focusing on diversifying away from YouTube. We still have to go to YouTube and present information there, because that's largely where the people are. We want to reach, we don't want to just preach to the choir, in an ecological chamber. But we need to diversify into these other platforms. So what I've been focusing on in order to deal with this censorship is to just not have all my eggs in one basket like YouTube anymore, and to start looking to these other platforms like BitChute and Minds and PocketNet and DTube and Steemit, and there's so many awesome platforms popping up right now that are against censoring people like me, and they have algorithms that actually show my content to the people who want to see it. The censorship is really bad lately, but I'm focusing on not saying we need to change YouTube, just kind of make it irrelevant, and let's migrate our audiences off of YouTube and onto these new platforms.
Yeah, we're definitely seeing censorship. I think very obviously the film I talked about, Vaxxed, that talks about the CDC whistleblower. Adam Schiff directly asked Jeff Bezos to pull down any documentaries that question vaccines, which is a huge topic I deal with. The very next day, you could not get Vaxxed as a streaming video any longer on Amazon. Netflix refuses to touch it. iTunes, everybody dropped our film. So if you want a copy, I'm going to be over in the marketplace right after this selling. It's practically contraband now, so maybe hide it in your suitcase. Also, but online, we also know that Adam Schiff reached out to Facebook. They continue this discussion right now. The headline is the WHO is talking to Google and Facebook and YouTube and all of them to tell them to start censoring any discussions about coronavirus. This is straight up censorship. It is book burning. We are living in a time where, we used to make fun of China or the Soviet Union. That type of thinking is taking over, the world. We're talking about censoring voices and reporters that are trying to bring you stories that you're not going to find anywhere else. So, just so you know, the one thing that really hurts us is when I first started on Facebook, if you were a top-ranked video, if you were getting a lot of views, it would just jump onto the top of different feeds, and so you would spread like wildfire. I had a video where I made fun of Bill Nye, the science guy, saying that vaccines were safe. And, the way you would watch it is, by that evening, after releasing that, 5-minute video, we had about 400,000 views. By the next morning, I was at 1.5 million. 2 days later, 10 million. And so it would have this exponential rise. Now I put out videos that are, I think, just as powerful. I'll watch the same thing. I'll be at 300,000 views, by 5 p.m. And then I wake up tomorrow morning and I have 335,000 views. That's impossible. That's impossible. Once you have that many people that have shared it, it should be exponentially, that video should be everywhere. They're stopping it. They're putting a ceiling on top of our growth. But that just means you all have to get more involved and share it with everybody.
Well, those that control the media control the mind. We've heard that saying for many years. And I mean, today you go from public school indoctrination, and then as in adulthood, you have the media to continue on that indoctrination. And unfortunately, there are very few amount of companies that own most of the major mainstream medias, and they control and divide people by playing people against each other. That's what I believe. The shadow banning has gotten uncontrollable at this point. I mean, it started off as people were leaving the mainstream media because they didn't buy what the mainstream media was saying. So they moved to things like YouTube. It was quote unquote more decentralized than the mainstream media, and everyone could have their say. They could post videos, and slowly and incrementally that started to get chipped away over time. People looked the other way while voices got silenced that were more extreme, and they started making their way down. I'll give you an example. I used to get 72% of all the views on my videos from the suggested videos on the side. So the suggested videos on the side of other videos. 72%. Overnight last year, I watched that get cut down to 1.2% of my views come from suggested videos. And when they do suggest my videos, they put it on makeup reviews and toy reviews and stuff that has absolutely nothing to do with the subject matter I talk about. That is one way that they stop us. I think it's reach. The demonetization has been happening for a while. Yes, it's getting worse, but it's not about the monetization. It's about the reach. It's about actually being able to reach people and educate people, which is what I believe we are all here to do. So when they restrict me from actually getting to anybody, reaching people that disagree with me, and all you see when you type in an exact title of my video, even with the name of my channel following it in the search, all you see is Fox News, CNN, MSNBC. That's all you see. They are manipulating what the masses see, and therefore they are manipulating what the masses think. So I think it's incredibly important that we look at reach. Number one, the algorithm is controlled against us. So what are we doing about it? We need to, like Dan said, not put all your eggs in one basket, and utilize other social media sites that are alternatives and not echo chambers. We need to bring people from all backgrounds to those places and make it comfortable for everyone to join so that we could reach the people that disagree with us. Because most of us in this room agree right now, but a lot of people out there disagree with us and they don't have access to our messages anymore. And that's incredibly dangerous, and I think we need to do something about that as soon as possible.
Yeah, it's quite a conundrum, because like what you said, Dan, YouTube is where people are, and we want to keep reaching people. We have these other platforms developing, like you said, BitChute and Minds.com, and literally there's so many now. But how do we get people who are still locked into YouTube, who actually think censorship is good? I mean, a lot of people think this is really a good thing that's happening. They're shutting down the conspiratorial voices, the ones who are actually bringing about hate speech. So how do we incentivize, or how do we get people off the mainstream platforms and following us elsewhere so we're not trapped in those echo chambers?
I think we really just need to lead by example. We can't force anybody to do anything. We got to hope that they realize what's happening. And what I've been doing is just trying to focus on suggesting that, look, we're not calling for some kind of internet regulation bill. We're not calling for these companies to be disbanded or whatever. We just want you to realize that they're lying to you and they're manipulating the numbers. And so I've started to make it a regular practice of mine to pretty much in every single video suggest that my audience start to migrate over to these other platforms before it's too late. This is actually a hedge against censorship, because we know, as a matter of fact, our channels are not going to be on YouTube for very long. I mean, it's turning into ThemTube. They're going to pull the plug. They're going to flip the switch. It could happen any day now. So we're preparing for this before it happens, and we're just trying our hardest to show people that you guys need to prepare too. Because if you have people that you've come to learn from and love their content, they may disappear, and you're going to want to know where they are. So for example, for me, if they flip the switch, I'm still going to be continuing to produce daily videos. It's just not going to be on YouTube. And a lot of people might be wondering, well, I guess that's the end of Dan Dix. I don't know what happened to that guy. But I won't have disappeared. I'll just have disappeared from that one particular platform. So right now I'm focusing on just trying to migrate everyone I can onto these other ones. And I honestly don't know what the answer is for which one is the be-all and end-all that's going to emerge as the winner here. Which is why I'm kind of focusing on putting my eggs in all the baskets, so to speak, in the hopes that the right one takes off.
Yeah, I think eggs in all the baskets is a way to go. I mean, it's funny, last I checked, if you type in Del Bigtree on Instagram right now, my name, it takes you directly to the World Health Organization. So I'm kind of, I think it's kind of fun thinking that my name is now a search, term for the World Health Organization. I mean, those are the types of things that are happening, but I'm not worried about it. The truth is just this last month, we've broken so many huge stories. We had video footage from inside of the Vaccine Safety Commission that the World Health Organization had in December. Our numbers doubled, from last year, they doubled in the last 3 weeks. We are still beating the algorithms because people are sharing it. That's really the only thing that matters. I'm not getting an algorithm boost. It's not getting put on top of any chart somewhere, but people that are watching my show are saying to their friends, you know what, you gotta watch this. And right now that seems to be working for the most part. I do see some people saying, it won't let me share, but right now, it's just like a television. You're gonna have to know I'm there. You're gonna have to go out of your way, tune in, write in the exact name, and then when you see something you like, you gotta get your friends involved. Can you see it? Are you looking at it? It's old school, so we don't have the advantages that Facebook used to give us or YouTube used to give us, but we can still grow, and we are exploding right now because people are really, really sick and tired of mainstream media. And remember, mainstream media is owned by pharma. 70% of the advertising on television is coming from the pharmaceutical institutions. So when it comes to coronavirus, or it comes to any discussion about disease or vaccines or drugs, you are only going to get what pharma wants you to hear. If you want to hear the truth, you're going to have to find the highwire. You're going to have to find these guys. And by the way, if you have any questions about what you should be really worried about with coronavirus, definitely check out my talk at 2 o'clock. I'm going to say things I've never said before, and we're going to blow some minds.
I think it's important that we get as many people as possible to go to these other alternatives. I'm going to pitch one right now because I think it's important, and I want everyone in this room to, it'll take you 5 or 6 seconds to do. It's go to this social media site called Float that a lot of independent medias have been posting on lately. It's called float.app. That's FLOTE.app. So basically, their goal is to replace Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon, all-in-one, encrypted private messaging, monetization on videos. They got super chats and crypto, and they have no algorithm, most importantly. I was talking about reach before. They have no algorithm that tells you what you can or cannot see. So if you follow someone, you will see that person. And right now we're seeing a lot of people on all sides of the spectrum and outside of it joining, which I'm really excited about because there's been a lot of alternatives over the years. And then you find it's pigeonholed. There's only a certain group of people there, and then you're not reaching the audience outside. And that's one of the things that YouTube, Google wants to see. They want us to only be able to reach each other and not people that disagree with us. And I think it's important that we don't get stuck in an echo chamber and we're continuously educating people outside of that bubble. So I hope everyone goes to float.app. That's flote.app. I'm a big fan of it, and it's also giving incentive for creators to post content and monetize it and not get shadow banned. I think that's important. The solution starts with the individuals that are watching our videos, that are paying attention to what we're doing and spreading that information. It's you guys that keep us alive, and we really hope you follow us to different places, because if you don't, we're just going to disappear one day and you'll never hear from us again. And unfortunately, that's the reality of today in media, and we need to do something about it fast.
I want to follow up with something, because we always talk on this side as victims. You really have to understand the problem from the other side, because I was working with a group to try and create something just like Float, where everything's free, totally encrypted. Well, I don't want as free as you want to be. Even freedom's going to have rules. It's going to have to. And that's what gets really, really complicated. So on one hand, I can understand what governments are up to and what the problem is. It's how do you define where your line is? And believe me, there were so many arguments about that. I kind of ended up just moving on, because you're going to have to all agree, where is the line? And if I can't see something that's encrypted, then how do I stop them? And then I'm going to get blamed for content that's on an encrypted platform that I didn't approve, but I can't get to them because I encrypted it for myself as the ruler. I said, you're free to do it, but now I'm going to be arrested because you're doing something illegal. How do we get to you? Should the FBI not be able to get to anybody that is, planning on bombing a building or hurting a child? I don't know. I mean, so there are actual real problems with social media that, all of us involved in it are going to have to, what I think the difference is we need to be at the table. We need to be at the table as independent, providers of content, not just have, Jeff Bezos and, those that are on top talking to the CIA. So, but it is more complicated. I want to say that it's not easy to figure out what freedom actually means in social media platforms.
Yeah, nothing good is ever easy either, and I think it's important that we're going to have to embrace the fact that it's going to be a tough road ahead, and that we're going to have to work really hard to get out of the rut that we've been basically placed in over the years as the censorship has gotten harder and harder to deal with. Yeah, I agree. I think that the line, though, as far as drawing a line, and it's subjective, it's impossible to really say, this is where I draw a line. And you're going to have to, depend on whatever company you're dealing with that might draw a line somewhere, and if you don't like it, that's demand, and you'll figure it out. But definitely the line isn't not allowing independent medias to speak and say what they want to say and put out information on, for example, vaccines, or put out information on 9/11, or, I can't help but note that we have Richard Gage sitting in the audience right now, and many of us in independent media in the last year have seen our videos deleted from YouTube, just deleted for interviewing him. And it says when they delete the video that it's for inciting violence, and other people got it taken down for hate speech. I mean, inciting violence, so talking about physics and talking about architecture and asking questions is inciting violence, but taking down a bunch of buildings and killing thousands or millions of people, I should add, in the aftermath is not inciting violence. The doublespeak is really, really strong today, and we need to combat that. And one thing I do know for sure is those videos should not be taken down. Those videos should be available for everyone that agrees or disagrees, and we should have that conversation, because as soon as you silence conversation, then you kind of lose the game, and at the end of the day, you just have propaganda.
And YouTube was built on 9/11 videos. That's what introduced me to YouTube. Another fun fact about YouTube, they are manipulating everything. Really, everything. I have 2 YouTube channels. One is called Joy Camp, which is all my comedy stuff with my friends, and the other one is my personal channel, which is Benny Wills. And last week I discovered that I, Benny Wills, was unsubscribed from Joycamp. I didn't do that, but they unsubscribed me from my own channel, thinking I wouldn't notice. You guys want to open up some questions from the audience? Sure. Yeah. Anybody have any questions for our three panelists here? Yes.
The last guy up on the scene, Brock Pierce, he talked about Voice, the new beta app. Have you guys known about this one?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing where Voice goes. We're all anticipating and eagerly anticipating, I should say, any alternatives out there. Like Dan mentioned earlier, don't put your eggs in one basket. I got like 100 tabs open on my screen for every social media that I could possibly have. So when I post on one, I post on all of them. And I'm excited to see what happens with Voice. We've all been eagerly anticipating it, so hopefully it really breaks ground and we see it coming to us soon.
It's funny, there's a couple of different apps like that have already reached out to me, said we want you to sign up. We've signed up, we've got the domain, but they're saying please don't post anything for a while, because if it starts out as anti-vaccine programming or pro-libertarian or anything, it's just going to grab that and we're just going to turn it into the same feedback loop that everything else is. So if you hold back, we're going to try and get mainstream conversations happening. So it's very complicated, just having a great app pop up if we all jump on it right away. So that's the concern. If someone really wants to be successful, they have to sort of make it Facebook and fluffy and kitten videos for a good year or two, so that you actually have an audience that we would want to reach out to. Otherwise, everyone that's already thinking like this already knows how to find us wherever we are.
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with that one, but I love the fact that I'm hearing about new ones all the time. So I'm certainly going to be signing up. Like I said, so many of these guys are developing blockchain-based decentralized platforms, and if it is of that nature, I'm highly, highly interested. So yeah, I'm just happy to hear that there's new ones, and thanks for bringing that to my attention.
Hi, thanks guys. Two things. I'm trying to access float.app, and its site can't be reached, so not unsurprising. Yeah. I don't know if anyone else is having the same issue.
Exactly.
Yeah, correct.
There's another one that's float.app.
Yeah, it's flote.app.
Didn't work. Yeah.
Well, I'm not
I'll
sure.
keep trying.
Maybe it's the internet. I don't know. Mexico.
A quick question for yeah, exactly. Quick question for Dell. Are you familiar with the use of chlorine dioxide to reduce or reverse the effects of autism, and also to defeat corona and any other virus? Some 95 to 97% of the world's dis-ease can be eradicated by the use of this simple substance
I was on a panel actually with Jim Humble that really did a lot of work with chlorine dioxide. Super beautiful guy. They've done amazing studies with it in Africa. They've absolutely cured not Ebola, but what was the other issue they were dealing with? Malaria. Just massive studies, Danish studies, and then the government said we're stopping those studies, and they shut it down. Chlorine dioxide is also one of the things that if an autistic parent talks about it or recommends it online to a friend, Child Protective Services is going to show up, grab their kid, and saying you're pouring Clorox into your child, which is really not what it is. And a new book has just come out by Jim Humble that has 155 patents, I believe, of chlorine dioxide before he ever even got involved with it. It's an amazing thing. You should probably look into it. To be honest, I have to be careful on the work that I do talking about cures and things, and a lot of people come to me with, this cures this cures this. I don't have a laboratory to test it, and I want to make sure that everything that I say is proven, that I have, I can bring in people that will say themselves, this is what I used and it healed me, and I'll say, great, that was what worked for you. But for people out that are dealing with certain ailments and issues, it's really amazing stuff. I have it in my house for certain things, and yeah, it's worth checking out. But yes, and I have met parents that swear that it really, really helped their child with autism. So it's sad that anything that isn't sold by a drug company and costs you about $15 instead of $50,000, that you just get attacked. Again, the pharmaceutical industry owns every newspaper pretty much and every news agency, and they're just going to shut you down. That was one of the things working on the Doctor's Television show. You just recognize, people always ask, what did you learn from that? What I learned from that is the best cures, the most talented surgeons, the people that are really taking things to a new level, they're the ones that have their license under review. They're being sued by the other doctors that don't want to evolve. So before I worked on the doctors, I thought the best ideas in medicine always rose to the top, and everybody learned that. It's the slowest moving environment there is. It is so locked in its old ideas that anyone that breaks out starts using lasers or some sort of endoscopic technology, and really the miracle workers I was in the OR with, many of them don't even have licenses anymore, even though they never killed anybody, only healed people, because this system is so corrupt.
By the way, I got float open. It's working for me. I don't know. Yeah.
So it's nice having three of my heroes in one spot. Another friend of mine, Dustin Nemos, is running a project called StopBitBurning.com. And it's essentially trying to put together a class action lawsuit. They've got a top tier attorney who's sued big corporations before, and their goal is to put together a consortium to go after Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube and sue them for violations of their own terms and policies. I'm, like you, an anarchist and more of a free market. I'd rather just see everybody say fuck Facebook and leave it alone. But I'm still on there every day like you guys are. So do you think that them all getting hit with a $500 million assessment would help, and do you guys support such an initiative?
Well, I would say that, and I often try to make the point that tyranny comes under the guise of convenience all too often. It's easier to be comfortable in your slumber and basically be taken advantage of than fight a battle against a massive behemoth like Facebook, Google, whatever it might be. I believe that the change will come from developing better things that replace the old guard, new systems that replace the old guard. We see that with Bitcoin. We see that with Uber. We see that with Airbnb. We see that with so many different companies around the world that are just replacing the need. Instead of using force, things are just getting replaced. And I mean, I understand the idea of the lawsuits and everything. Personally, I just don't think it's the way to go. I think the way to go is just to replace these guys. I mean, looking at YouTube right now, people are walking away because it's not like it used to be. You look up a video, you can't find it. It's not efficient anymore. And once it stops being efficient, it stops being convenient. And once it stops being convenient, it stops being used. And we saw that with MySpace. We saw that with mainstream media. We've seen that with so many different things. I believe that people will naturally walk away. But I understand why people would want to do a class action lawsuit. I just wouldn't personally want to get involved myself.
Yeah, I don't know that I have a lot to add to that because Josh pretty much nailed it. I personally, as a voluntarist, am not in the interest of using the violent arm of the state to initiate any kind of force upon anyone. I would rather, as he said, let's just make the old systems obsolete by doing a better job. And hopefully, if we lead by example, and we can start to migrate off these channels. I mean, give it up to a guy like James Corbett, who's never been on Facebook. He quit his Twitter account. He's never been on Instagram. Yet he's doing just fine. So guys like that are true pioneers, and I think that's the way we got to do it moving forward, rather than using the violent arm of the state to try to suppress somebody else from doing what they want to do. Let's just go ahead and do what we want to do, and hopefully people will follow.
All right, we have time for maybe two.
I'm going to disagree. I think those are great points, but I don't agree. I come from a mainstream perspective. And I don't think we make change unless we have serious, gigantic movements in population. All of the ideas that are shared here at Anarchapulco do no one any good if it's held by 1% of the population of the world. And if we keep just releasing things where everyone is congregated in places we can talk and say, let's go over to this closet or that room, we're never going to get anywhere. I don't think that lawsuits do anything. I don't think the company cares if they lose $5 billion. That's nothing. But with that lawsuit, and by the way, I use lawsuits all the time. My nonprofit has won a lawsuit lawsuit against the National Institute of Health, Health and Human Services, the FDA. We're suing the CDC right now. I have civil cases against the vaccine mandate in New York. Not because I think that they care if they sue, but that's the only way I can get a mainstream headline. If we can beat Facebook in a headline, then everyone in the world says, Jesus, New York Times, I didn't know that we were being censored on Facebook. You'd be surprised how many people don't know what's happening. They're not going to move to these other platforms if they don't know that they're being censored or they're being lied to, it's being controlled. The only way we do that is with winning lawsuits. Those make headlines. And by the way, I'm looking at a lawsuit right now personally. I'm not going to join a class action. Facebook, I believe, is committing fraud against me. They've shut down. I'm going to play a video today in my talk at 2 o'clock that is currently flagged saying false information. That's marring. I'm a reporter. That's my job. You're hurting my job. You're disparaging me. I'm going to sue if they don't pull that thing down. And I think that the reasons they've given for pulling that, putting that moniker on my video are totally incorrect. So we have to hold them accountable. I don't think it's violent to use lawsuits. I think that those are the things that are available to our society. I'll use any tool I have to, whether they built it, I built it. Winning is everything.
Hi, a while back I heard about a platform called MadeSafe and a decentralized data storage and encrypted it amongst many other people's computers. So your data was everywhere, but it was unencrypted and you could always get it back. I think that we need to decentralize communication. And right now we're working through all their communications bottlenecks where they can control everything. But like ad hoc peer-to-peer Wi-Fi between our phones, transmitting data, communicating through there, sending videos and things like that. With the new higher 4G, 5G and stuff like that, the data, there will be much more bandwidth for data, so that stuff can be sent out instantaneously. So if we can work on ways to be able to communicate, encrypt it and stuff like that. That's what I'd love to see is people talking about encrypting communication and using tails and all kinds of things like that here to be able to get all your information out there instantaneously to a whole lot of people instead of going to a website like YouTube to put your information there. If your information gets broadcasted out like a old AM radio thing, but instantaneously to people's phones or platforms.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I would love to see a new social media platform site that is built exactly like Bitcoin in the sense that the information is going to be controlled on individual nodes all over the world so that there wouldn't be a central authority, any kind of central thing that could be taken down at any given time. And if it is, well, the information would exist on individual millions and millions of nodes all over the world. So I think I'm sure there's platforms like that in development now that would basically take away the ability for anybody to kill the thing, just like very similar to Bitcoin. So I think we're there. We're at that fork in the road. One of these platforms are going to emerge any day now, and we're going to have the ability to continue to access our information that we want on the desktop. Even if they, kill the internet, for example, we would still have access to the information we downloaded on our desktop on our individual nodes. So I would love to see social media sites move in the direction of something that Bitcoin did in a similar way. I think that'd be fantastic.
I think it's going there. I mean, I remember when I was a kid, I went out and bought like a spy cam, it looked like a pen. You go in, take pictures of the dog and the cat. You never did anything with it, but it seemed sexy. I think that that's where this is going to go. I think it's just going to be sexy to have totally encrypted information flying. WhatsApp is doing great. Everybody's moving that direction. Whether or not they need that technology or not, the money is going to be there. So for a libertarian perspective, there's a lot of money in having any sort of app that seems encrypted and you're totally safe. And I don't think any government's going to be able to stop it. It's on the way.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, this is what I meant by convenience. When I said before, tyranny comes under the guise of convenience, so do a lot of good things. It just depends on what side you're on and what you develop and how good you develop it. I believe that we will see evolution via technology, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We either go in the direction of full tyranny with technology or full liberty with technology, and that's up to us, and that's that's going to come down to what we decide on, what we support. The demand of the market is always right, and we need to just promote good ideas and try and educate people on those good ideas. So I completely agree.
Do you guys have another question or two in you before we break for lunch?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. Has to be a question, though. That's the rule. It's questions only.
Hi, so I'd like to hear how each of you kind of balance this. So on one hand, we have issues of the day that basically suck up all the oxygen that a lot of alternative news sites talk about. It's like, censorship on campus and everything, which are important. It's also important to build your audiences and counter things. But on the other side, we don't talk about the Federal Reserve and other topics. So I'd like to, as much, and basically it takes your time away from those types of things. So I'd like to hear each of your thoughts on that because, we have to counterbalance things, but at the same time, it takes time away from other issues that don't really get the oxygen, if that makes any sense.
I personally don't pay too much attention to what my peers are doing in that regard when it comes to the things I'm going to cover. I just try to cover what feels right to me. But so I essentially am not really looking at it in that sense. We're all in this together. Me and Josh, we'll end up covering a lot of similar topics, and a lot of times we funnily, we'll log on and we'll see, oh, he just uploaded the exact same video I just uploaded, and it's purely out of coincidence. But this is because we cover the important things going on in the world. So personally, I don't really worry or concern myself with what others are doing, and I just try to focus on what I think I should do.
I just try to cover whatever I see to be important on a day-to-day basis. If I'm running through the news, if I see a story that no one's talking about, I'll cover it. And oftentimes, Dan and I or Luke or someone in independent media will do the same video, and so be it. We're not in, as far as competition goes, we're just trying to make ourselves better, each other better. None of us are in competition against each other. We have different ideas about certain things, and they're rather minor. At the end of the day, we just want to spread information to the masses, and sometimes we end up with the same story, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we end up interviewing the same guy in the same week. I mean, it happens. And, sometimes our minds think alike. But, when there's a big story in the news that a lot of people are talking about, we're going to try and get on that and try and dissect it the best we can and bring people the best possible information that they're not hearing on the mainstream media. So, I don't think too much about what other people are reporting on, but it does tend to intertwine from time to time because, if a big story is in the media and we got to cover it, and we all have a slightly different perspective on it. So I guess that's the best way I can answer that.
I didn't quite understand. You're just saying that you think there's certain topics like Federal Reserve that aren't being covered? Just yeah. Do you feel like we're just following what mainstream is doing and right. Right. So I think I agree with these guys for the most part. I think that, I always get asked, what is it I'm supposed to do? What should I do? And I say, follow your intuition. We're all supposed to be, I think we're all vessels of something that's really important going on right now. Whether you believe in a collective unconscious or you believe in God, I think that there's a movement to change the world, to evolve to a, more of the dream that we've all had. And I think in order to do that, you have to follow your own guidance and your own instincts. So just like they said, my show, I only do things that I wake up in the morning thinking, I think that's really interesting. When I first put my team together, I said, I want to be talking about the news. I want to talk about politics. I want to get into the environment, all these other things. But the truth is I only have a weekly talk show because I do it a little differently. I'm not just commenting on things. Usually the things I cover on the high wire, I have multiple sources. I'm going to make sure I'm giving you truth that nobody else is instead of just sort of my opinion on it. So we have to do a lot more research. But the truth is, it's been like I'm on the vaccine issue. There's other issues I really care about. But there's so much information every week, new studies, things that are happening that I've just, sort of resigned myself to. I'm that guy. guy. I mean, I guess because I also come from a medical talk show, my team's designed to study medicine and science. We could talk about other things or Federal Reserve, but I don't have a team that's talented enough to get into it. So hopefully someone that's inspired by that topic will start their own show, and that's really how this all works. We're all just doing, I think, what we're inspired to do. I don't think anyone's avoiding anything, and I don't think that the mainstream is really driving what we're doing. We are just following our own guidance, and I think we're all excited. I love it when I see other bloggers getting out and talking about vaccines and things. They're like, oh, they're in competition with you. I was like, no way. We have billions of people to, wake up. Everybody says things in a different way. I get attacked by people that are, anti-vaxxers saying I'm not anti-vaccine enough, or my message isn't, I was like, fine, then it doesn't work for you. Go find someone or start your own blog. I am simply doing what I'm inspired to do, and there's people that clearly like it. So that's my audience. Go find yours. I'm not in competition with you. It's going to take all of us. We're all a family on this, and hopefully more of these topics will see the success that some of us are having, in this space, and say, I want that for my life.
I think everyone should spread information, share information. If you're passionate about it, don't worry about the step up and the leg up of the journey, the difficulty. Just do it. I started out watching other independent medias. I thought, wow, these guys are doing amazing work, and I thought I can do that too. And I started doing it, and it took years for anything to happen, and something came of it, and I'm thankful every single day that it worked out. I'm able to bring people information on a daily basis. I'm able to talk to amazing people all over the world. It's an amazing job. I'm very grateful. Shadow banning, censorship, demonetization aside, it's the best job in the world. I don't care if I'm homeless in a back alley, I'd be happy doing this because I'm doing what I believe in. And I think every single one of you out there should do what you believe in, even if it's uncomfortable, even if you feel like it's a difficult task to, rise up and do videos or something like that, or be an activist, or speak out in one way or another. I think you should do it. Don't let discomfort dissuade you. I believe that fear is an important function. Fear stops you from running into traffic. Fear keeps you alive, but it can also stop you from living. And I think that every single one of us should face our fears to a certain extent and go out of our comfort zone and try to change the world around you, because you can't imagine the web that you can create, just one person, and what it can really turn into. You can save lives. You can do amazing things. So I just hope that every single person out there spends a little bit of time even just sharing content, sharing information, talking to their friends and family, and going out of their comfort zone, because we need all of you now more than ever.
All right, we have about 5 minutes left, so we're going to do some rapid-fire questions with rapid-fire answers, starting with this gentleman to my left.
You've just inspired me to go out and start my own YouTube channel. I hope it does well. Wish me luck. Okay, what's my serious question? Do I have one? Yes, what's the best channel on YouTube? No, just kidding. Because I knew you were going to say that. That people don't know about. Who would you like to promote that people might not know about?
I got to think about that for a minute.
I know one.
If anybody doesn't know about Corbett Report, and I'd be highly surprised that anybody in this room doesn't, I got to say, he is probably by far one of my most favorite YouTubers. There's not too many people on YouTube. Actually, there's nobody on YouTube other than James Corbett, who I'll share his videos without actually having watched the full thing, because I'm that confident that it's going to be a solid piece. You're the only one I do it with, because consistently, 100% of the time, it's been solid content, so I'm pretty confident every piece is going to be moving forward. So when people ask me that question, usually it's not coming from James Corbett, because my answer is always James Corbett. So anyways, that's what I have to say.
Yeah, there's a great channel. Actually, we had a Change Media University course a couple years ago, and this guy from India named Johan Tengra showed up, and he was really listening to what we had to say, really involved, really ambitious about starting his own media in India, which, by the way, there's almost no independent media in India, and it's the second most populous country in the world. And he went out and started a channel called Anarchy for Freedom India, and he only has about 809 subscribers today, but I recommend people go subscribe to him. He does some really good, hard-hitting reports on on Agenda 2030 implementation in India and stuff that you're not going to find anywhere else. So I really appreciate that he came out, he was inspired, and against many odds, he went out and actually just started doing it and put a ton of work into it. Some of these videos are insanely long, and he put a ton of work and energy into it, and I really appreciate seeing things like that. There are a lot of great channels out there that are unknown, but I definitely suggest you go subscribe to his.
Just a quick side note. I put out a video once saying top 5 YouTubers with less than 1,000 subscribers. Now, it was a couple of years ago. I'm not going to remember exactly who those people were. But after I put out that video, a number of those channels exploded. I mean, they doubled and tripled and quadrupled their numbers. So that's something I think it's good for guys like us to do, is to promote these other guys who are really trying to take a stab at it and really diving in head first and not really getting that audience. We had the ability to promote people like them in a sense. And so I think that's something that's important to do.
I'll be honest, I didn't even know who James Corbett was before I came here. And people will be shocked by that. I couldn't tell you who else's channel out there you should watch, and I know that there's like, oh my God, so I'm totally self-absorbed in many ways. I've been honest with my friends my whole life about that. But it comes, I think, in some ways from the way I was raised. My parents homeschooled me. I wasn't allowed to have music. I never got a record. I didn't get CDs. When I was 16, I got a Walkman from Christmas from one of the only people that had any money in our family, and my mother took it away. And her attitude about it was, I don't want you to listen to other music. You want to have music, then you make music. I don't want you to try to make music like other people make music. I want you to do it your way. I think it's really interesting. I think Billie Eilish, who just swept the Grammys, probably was raised in a very similar way. Those of us that are raised like that, the idea is that, and I was a writer. My dad taught me how to write. He was a screenplay writer when I was a kid. And he would say, don't read a book about what you're going to write about, or then you won't know when that book is infecting you and your perspective. So the truth is I really, for me personally, am trying to be as clear a channel for something, the way that I would see it. It's worked for me in television. It got me through, even though executive producers would scream at everybody else. And I remember trying to think, how do I make this executive producer happy? And I realized I'll never be able to figure out how she thinks. I can only do what I think would be amazing and brilliant to me, and if nobody cares about that, so be it. So that's really where I come from, and maybe it's just a little different than everyone else.
I think the answer to that question is rather obvious, actually. It's youtube.com/Benny Wills. It's a new channel, it's still growing, 4,000 subscribers, so go home and subscribe today. We have time for one more question, then we're going to call it.
I have I think, a strange question I want to ask. So, do you think that by participating in events like this or conferences like this could be a way of circumventing online censorship in a way?
I think conferences like this are important to raise awareness about the fact that there's a problem in the first place. Like Del said, a lot of people on Facebook are not aware that they're being manipulated by the information. So yeah, I think conferences like this are very important because, it's not just the people in this room who are going to see this. They're producing videos, there's a live stream. This is going to get out there on the internet. So yeah, I think there's nothing wrong with it, and it does kind of help push us in the direction that we need to go, for sure.
I've met a lot of amazing people at these conferences, and it's one of my favorite things to do. I rarely watch speeches. I'm usually in the hallway talking to people, and that's one of my favorite things about these conferences is all the different ideas, and it influences me when I end up doing videos later on, and I'm informed of things that I didn't know about before. As far as the censorship goes, losing millions and millions of potential viewers is hard to make up for at conferences, but with that said, it helps. It 100% helps. It's better than not going to the conferences and not meeting those people and not having those connections. And I think it also is important to make connections with viewers in person because it's different than just staring into a lens of a camera. I'm staring into a camera all the time, and it's very solitary. And being able to come to these conferences and actually see people face to face, shake their hand, talk to them, interact, is a lot of a different situation than staring into a camera and just hearing my own voice. So I think it's important. As far as censorship goes, I'm not sure it helps, but it helps, but I don't think it's going to change the world quite yet. I think we need to build alternatives and platforms and ideas at these conferences and come out of these conferences with new ideas and solutions. And I think that's really important going forward.
I think in Anarchapulco, just like a landmark Facebook forum or any type of self-help weekend, you can say, wow, that was really awesome, and go home and nothing happens. I mean, that's the biggest problem with anything like this, right? We all get to come and be around like-minded people. We get all inspired, and then we go home and we go back to our jobs, and then we wait for the next Anarchapulco to go, whether it's in Las Vegas or somewhere else. I think that things only change if we actually take the energy and the beauty that's happening here and we go and do something with it. And to clarify, by the way, James Corbett, I'd love to have you on the High Wire, and I'd love to help spread your message. And Richard Gage, who I met here, that is what happens here, is that people that have platforms, hopefully they hear some of the things I'm saying and say, I want to spread that message too, and we all start helping each other. So in that way, we grow because of things like this. But in the end, we only make a change if we take the change that happens in these things and we go and we do something about it. And that's what I think we all have to sign up for when we come to things like this.
All right, we are out of time. Quickly, gentlemen, tell people where to find you. Pertinent information, need to know.
Pressfortruth.ca is the website. You just search Press for Truth on YouTube. You'll find everything there. The description in all my videos will have all the links to all the various alternative platforms that I'm on. I strongly suggest you sign up to me on all these ones, BitChute and DTube and Minds, and it goes on and on, Float. I'm on all of them. You can find them in the description of any one of my videos. And again, sign up to those before they flip the switch and all of a sudden I disappear from YouTube.
Yeah, I think start with thehighwire.com. That's one I control. If you want to watch me on Facebook or YouTube, The High Wire with Del Bigtree. My nonprofit's website is icandecide.org. That's the Informed Consent Action Network. That's where you'll see the lawsuits. You can read them yourself, how we won against government agencies. It also has our white papers and writings about the dangers of vaccines, including our debate we've been having with Health and Human Services. It's the most thorough debate in the history, I think, of science against a government agency. We're winning that debate, and if you want, we have a book about it, so if you want to come and meet me over in the marketplace right now, I have the book, I have Vax, the DVD, but I think, like all of it, you just have to come, you got to sign up to our website specifically. If you want to play YouTube, great, but you better be able to find us when they shut us down.
You can subscribe to World Alternative Media on YouTube, though you'll probably be unsubscribed by the algorithm eventually and not see any of my videos. So for that reason, I hope everyone finds me on float.app. That is at Josh Sigurdsson as well as at Wham, W-A-M. You can find me on there. I am not shadow banned on there, so you will see my content when I post it. And I'm on all the other platforms as well, Minds and Instagram, Twitter, all of them, Facebook. I'm not proud of it, being on Facebook, but time is ticking for them, and it's good to get the message out to the few people left that I can on those behemoth platforms that are sucking the life out of all the independent medias. But for now, you can find us on all of these different platforms. But I really recommend float.app, and that's how I'll finish it off.
Guys, thank you so much for your time. Be back here at 2 o'clock for Del's presentation. Don't miss it.